Okay, good. Start
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to consent to this on this end, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a little thing comes up that little box that asks me if I want to continue.
Ah, that's interesting because that's new. Like the first time I heard that recording thing,
Yeah,
that wasn't necessary. But we both heard it, and it'll say the same thing when I shut it off, right?
right.
Man,
Right.
that just started like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah,
But now it
right.
sounds like they've taken it to the next level. To man,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
lawyers must be working hard.
yeah. They're earning their keep. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so- but working through these things, this is really interesting. I did all this by ear without writing anything down.
Okay.
And have found that there's as I think we talked about before, in a couple of these, certainly in teacher children, you can pretty much hear the chord changes um, every time there is one. And it seems obvious. This is
Okay, good.
for the most part, this is where I ought to be going, and this is what I ought to be doing.
Yeah,
Um, and 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 in country roads, there's just more complexity to it,
definitely.
and across the different sections, and some of that I think but um, what's interesting is I find myself trying to think about also think about the chords and the chord numbers,
Good.
and and in parts of country roads that's helpful, and
Hmm.
then parts I haven't, for whatever reason, that hasn't clicked yet. But anyway, it's kind of fun. And then Nights in White Satin, I started just picking out the melody,
Okay.
and I I haven't gotten to the rest of it.
Good, because actually that's um, my guitar teacher, who I only took lessons till I was still like 10 or 11 years old, but
Yeah,
I stayed in touch with the guy who really got me started. And many years later, he died about 15 or 20 years ago now. But
yeah,
um, he sent me a book that he had made, and I'm sure I have one around here. And it was just kind of a small pamphlet, but it was kind of about if you can play the melody to the song, how to figure out the chords. So it was this whole approach to, like using kind of some techniques of figuring out, okay, well, this is the note that the chord change happened on, and things like that.
yeah.
And and uh, and at the very end, it kind of says, hey, and once you've kind of got this technique down, you don't even need this book anymore. So give it to a friend of yours and let them work on it. It's like so it was a great, it was like Abby Hoffman steal this book. I don't know if you remember that from the early
Yeah,
'70s, right?
sure.
But but so with that song, that's what we'll work on. If you can figure out the melody notes, then we look at what chords are in the key, and then we look at what chord happens when a note changes. There's a good chance that that note is in the chord you're going to, but not guaranteed. That's so
Uh,
there's so the and what was the fourth song that you said you didn't get to?
that was the four song.
Oh, okay. So the other three were Teacher Children, Country Roads.
Margaritaville,
Oh,
then
Margaritaville. Right.
Teacher
Got it.
Children, and Country Roads.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And then great. Well, let's get to that, because that seems to be a lot of fun. And then the other thing that I need to do is to figure out, if you will, how to play them. I mean, I'm playing Teacher Children. I can kind of sort of do the basic, but I haven't really thought about what should I really be doing.
Okay. Good. Sure.
Uh, and just I'm trying to just make sure that I get to the chord changes, um, and then so anyway, and then when we get to Country Roads, there's the interesting thing about, it seems to me that it starts on G,
Okay.
but it starts on a C chord. That's what it seems like
Okay,
to me.
yeah, it could be, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway,
Okay, so tell me about Teach Your Children first. So did you listen carefully to it and play along with them, or just kind of wing this from what you could remember?
from what I can remember.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
let's hear what you got.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Oh wait, one more thing. And so was that the case with all of them?
yes.
Okay, okay, great. So
Oh, actually, the in the case of um, Nice and White Satin, I looked up the lyrics just to confirm what I was singing in my head
oh, okay,
were actually the lyrics. And for the first verse, it pretty much was.
okay, yeah,
But the second verse, I don't know about. I could probably pick it out. But anyway, teach your children.
okay.
Gotta get myself in. Okay. Oh, I don't know how you end it there.
Yeah, yeah, that's
That's
great.
roughly what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing, two things, sort of unrelated to the song. Um, your Fs are getting better, but you're still getting to them crooked and then straightening out the bar as you're
Yeah.
there for a couple of beats.
Yeah.
So really work on getting that straight, like before you even push it down.
Okay.
Okay, because and so that sort of also relates to the strumming thing that we want to do in this. This is a real typical country song, and so what we want to do is pretty close to what you were doing there. We want two bass notes in each measure, and we want to be alternate. We always want the root on beat one, and then we want an alternate bass on beat three. And
Right.
so the choices for a C chord, well, and then we want to have a little bit more than just a down on every two and four. But it doesn't have to be much, partly because this song is fairly fast. So a down up on four would be a little bit more, would help just make it a little more varied.
Okay. Okay.
So bass, down, up. But alternate bass notes again. Work on going from the fifth to the fourth string.
To the fourth, and I seem to miss that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. But now, and then the first bass note for the F is going to be what? What are you going to try to hit first on the bass?
6 and 4. I think 6 and
Yeah,
4.
so 6 and 4. So back to a C chord for a second. Obviously, the first bass note then we're hitting is the root of the chord.
Right.
And that's pretty much the rule across the board, unless the name of the chord tells you to play something else, like G with B in the bass, or something like that. So unless we have a slash in the name of the chord,
Right.
you play the root on the first beat, right? And
Right.
and then in the case of like C, when we go to when we go to what is kind of like the natural second bass note, the fourth string,
Yep.
what part of the chord is that?
Um. Well, that is the fifth.
What note is it?
It's an E.
Right. So it's
Oh, it's the third. I'm sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And And what would the fifth be of a C chord?
The fifth of the C chord would be G.
So where could you get a G as right now? A couple of times when you were aiming for the fourth, you got the third string,
Right.
and that's a more typical bass note to use as a second bass note for many chords. In the case of C, it's a little. It means you go up to the third string, which is a-okay, or which is fine in all these rules are not rules; they're guidelines. So 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 listen to the difference in the sound between going to the third and going to the fifth. There's the third. Here's the fifth. What do you think?
Sounds like a melody note and not a bass note, actually.
Partly because it's pretty high. In this case, we're up on the third string. Now, what about going down to the fifth? Where could you get a lower G?
Oh, you could just go up.
Right.
Pull up here instead.
Yeah, so if you play the C chord like that, now you could go down to the sixth string. See, this is starting to sound like John Denver, like Johnny Cash, like that's what you hear. This is what you hear in country songs, is down to the fifth when it's reasonable to do.
Yeah.
What about like so that would be and many times I would do that by moving this finger rather than having both of them there, partly so that they don't both keep ringing over each other. It makes each one a little bit more prominent if they're not both sounding the whole time and you just restrike them. Now this is a kind of subtle difference, but if I've got them both on the whole time, I don't know if this will translate through the zoom and everything, but if you're hearing them both all the time, as opposed to, they're a little clearer, by moving. Now, but many guitar players, especially country singer-songwriters, would just play their, and sometimes many of them would play their C chord like this all the time, and just strum away and not even hit bass notes sometimes, but just so they don't have to worry about not hearing the open E string on a C chord. Yeah. Because that's not a good sound, is the low third in the bass. Anyway,
okay.
What about on a G chord now? So what if we hit kind of like natural bass notes for G? Oh, so I guess wait. So the kind of conclusion that we're getting at there is that the fifth is the best note to have as a second bass note in general. Right. But in the case of a lot of chords like C, it's not as you have to do something a little bit different than normal. Now, something that people do on C chords all the time is something like this. Now that's a different sound that is pretty distinctive, and that's of course hammering on the third from what would be the second note in the scale.
Right.
Now, on a lot of chords, you can't do that because there isn't a third nearby that is easy to reach. But C has that kind of sound, which means if you hear a song and you think you hear that, man, I think I hear a hammer on to the third as a second bass note. There are only two chords that this works on, actually, and C is one of them.
Yeah.
Now, I brought up G a second ago. So if we were just doing a normal bass pattern, a logical bass pattern for G, we would think of as 6 and 4.
6 and 4.
And what part of the chord is 4 in that case?
Well, 4 is D, so it's the fifth.
Right. So that gives us, so if you're going back and forth between 6 and 4 on a G chord, you're getting that country sound that we're kind of looking for.
Right. Right.
But what do you have on the fifth string here?
Well, we have B. We could go A to B, which would be going second and third.
Right. So this is the other chord that has the option of that hammer onto the third.
Right.
And we played a song that did this. What was it?
Yeah.
I know we've played a lot of songs.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. All the way to E. It went to E minor right there. E minor. and the same hammer on, right?
Huh?
The same hammer on the E minor that we had on, but now it's not the third. Now it's not the third anymore.
No.
So it must be the fifth.
Yeah. Yeah. Then
Right.
we then it, yeah, then it was see. Then it went good. Let's see.
And here's our, yeah.
Okay, what song is it?
It was a Beatles tune.
Well, I've just seen a face.
Very good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So that was a good example of a song that does that hammer on to the third. And
Right.
so if you hear that in something else you're trying to figure out, if it rings, if it sounds like something that happened in I've just seen a face, that's telling you it's that hammer on to the third.
Right.
And the only chords you can do that on are G and C.
Right.
You know. Now what else that tells you is that, and we're going to get further into this in the next few minutes. That also tells you if you hear that hammer on and it's clearly not G or C by pitch, that they're capoed someplace and they're playing a G or a C chord, but you're going to hear the pitch that they're really at because of where they're capoed.
Okay.
And you might say, hey, wait, this song is in A, but I'm hearing that hammer on that sounds like it's G. So that would be telling you that they've got a capo where?
But it sounds like G.
It sounds like A, but you hear the hammer on that means they're using a G shape.
Oh, I see. It sounds like A. Well, that would mean you're up here.
Okay, so where's the capo?
And the capo would be on the third.
Not quite.
No?
Think about a G
Oh,
shape.
yeah, no, the capo would be on four.
No, it'd be the other way. If it would only be at 2 for that hammer on for the if you were playing a G chord with the got it?
Yeah.
Right. Anyway. Yeah. So that's where the chord would be, but you need the capo at 2
Yeah.
to make your G shape. Don't try to do this without. Yeah, but that would be the hammer on you'd hear is from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret,
Yep.
right?
Okay.
And so anyway, there are all kinds of clues that can lead you to think that, oh, this song seems to be in this key, but I'm hearing something I can't do there. And the answer is they're capoed someplace.
I see. Okay.
And one of the obvious clues would be they seem to be in the key of E flat. It's like, okay, then they're definitely capoed somewhere, playing one of our 5 standard keys.
Okay.
Okay, so there are basically 5 keys. We talked about this a little bit, I think, and so 2 of those are C and G. And those are the 2 keys that have this possibility of hammering onto the third in the bass.
Right.
Is what I'm kind of okay. So that's sort of the end of that story now.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So one last thing then about Teach Your Children, and now what I want you to do is listen to it.
Uh-huh.
It is not in the key of C.
Okay.
The original is not in C, but the way you played it, the chord progression was exactly right.
Okay.
So that's so there's a lot of really cool things about this. That's why I asked you earlier if you listened to these to try to figure out what key they were in, or if you just were winging them, And so now let me dig up a quick. All I want to do here is play like the first couple of notes, or even like let's just listen to the progression a little bit first, and you can hear that it's by number. Okay. So we could pick any one of those chords and just stop it right there and have you find that pitch.
Yep.
And since you already know that the progressions, it starts on 1. When we hear the first chord, we're hearing chord 1.
Right.
But I don't know if it jumped out at you right there that wasn't C, that didn't sound like what you just played. Now it's been like 15 minutes since you played it. But it's like, oh, okay, that wasn't a C chord, right? And so what we got to do, did it sound, without having, now you haven't played anything yet, did it sound like they're higher or lower than you?
Sound like they're higher.
Okay, so without listening to it again, what are some of our choices? Or what's the first choice that would be higher than where we were?
Higher than where we're D.
Okay, so play a D chord and see if that sounds like what we just heard a second ago.
Oh,
Now, see, it's been a while. Now we haven't listened. It was like 30 seconds ago the last time you heard this. But the fact that you heard that they sounded higher than what you were used to playing all week,
right.
that's like the logical thing to try. Is let me try just the next key up, and right there, your first impression was, well, that's a lot closer than what I was doing in C,
Yes.
right? And so now let me take it back to the beginning, and I'll just while it plays that first chord, you play your D chord and see what you think. What would that make the next chord? Or what'd you think?
Oh, that sounded right to me.
Yeah. So that's what it is. This song's in D.
Yeah. Okay.
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 And now one thing a D. So now, so what are the chord? What are our four chords going to be then?
Well, they're going to be D. Oh, you mean our
The four that are in the song, because we use what
yeah,
numbers?
in the progression then, it's going to be D, D, G, and no, D, F, and G.
No, because that's what you had in C. Remember F and G.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it can't be. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, D, G, and A.
Yeah. And then we had the one minor chord that in this key is now going to be what?
It's going to be B minor.
Yeah. Okay. So so now a D chord lends itself really well to this country bass pattern
Right.
because we've got a D on the fourth string and we can go down
Yeah.
to the fifth string to get A, which is our fifth.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can hear that that's a little bit more, that's that country sound that we had to work on a C chord to get by doing something a little unorthodox or something a little extra.
Right.
But on D, it's built in.
Right.
Right. And then we're going to go to G, and we're going to do in the bass there 6 and 4, and we get our root and fifth, right? Yeah. Yeah. Now, one thing about A that's kind of cool is if you go up to the fourth string for the second bass note, you're getting what note?
Um, oh, that's E.
Which is which part of the chord then?
From in
We're on an A. We're on an A chord, so E is what?
Oh, yeah. It's the fifth.
Right. So that's also falling like right into our parameters
Right.
here. But we also have an E lower. We can go to the sixth string for our E there.
Right.
And see, that sounds really cool too. So it going down to the fifth is really what you hear as like the standard country bass pattern. Now there are just some chords you can't do that on. You can't do that on a G chord.
Right.
But on a D chord and an A chord, and actually on any chord that has the root on the fifth string,
The string.
it's just that you may have to move to it like we did on our C chord.
Right.
And that means like on a B7 chord,
Yeah.
you could do the same thing. What could you do for a second bass note here then? Yeah. So you want so the relationship of the guitar strings is that they're from the sixth to the fourth, sixth to the fifth is a fourth, right? In okay. Well, that's also down a fifth. In other words, a fourth and a fifth are inversions of each other,
Uh-huh.
right? So wherever you have a root on the guitar on some string, you've got the fifth of that one string lower at the same place. That would be true. That's true for our D chord too. We're hitting the fourth string open for D, and the fifth string open is our bass note there. Is our fifth.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the end of that story. That's the end of the teacher children story. The rest of them will probably be a little bit shorter, but I wanted to, there's a lot of stuff in that because the next project is as far as these go. Oh, so Margaritaville is got to be totally under control. I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you got the little intro and stuff.
The what? Yeah, the little intro. Yeah, yep, the intro. Manage that. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
good. One of my students that was here last night um, brought up a song that I couldn't place at all. Couldn't remember. It was Jay and the Americans. Do you remember them from the late mid '60s?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he played a little bit of the song for me, and I couldn't place it. But then he said, and I think I figured out. It was in D, and he said, I think the intro was something like this. Something like that, and it was just all these thirds that I've been talking about with a lot of my students lately, and he was so he was thrilled that it's like, man, all that stuff you gave me, that crap you gave me about like figuring out how to play thirds, then I hear it in this song, just like in Margaritaville, so
Yeah.
it was it's always fun when fun for me when people make those kinds of discoveries and connections.
What was the song?
You know what, I'm gonna have to. It was this. Oh, good. I still have it up on YouTube. I'll get it for you. It was called Come a Little Bit Closer.
In a little cafe, just the other side of the border.
Oh yeah.
So I couldn't place this at all.
Sitting there giving me looks that made my mouth water.
Anyway, but you hear that intro? Did you hear the
Yeah.
thirds that happened right there? And Fred even figured out that he says, yeah, but they're not in D. They're like a half step high. They had to have a capo at the first fret. So that was the first thing he did, is put a capo at his first fret and said, and started playing these thirds and said, and that's what I mean. I wasn't familiar with the song, but when I dialed it up, I said, man, Fred, you got it. That was it. That's so cool. So, anyway, so Fred he's been a student of mine for 10 or 12 years, and he really came to playing the guitar because he loves to sing. And so songs like that are what made impressions on him growing up, because they had really cool vocals and great singers in them.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of songs that he's drawn to, and he's particularly a big Elvis fan and stuff like that. So but anyway, you'll meet him someday, I'm sure. Okay. Now, well, so what do you think happened in Country Roads?
Country Roads. Okay. 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 It seems to me, when I just listen to it, it seems like the first chord is C,
Okay.
but it seems like the first note is G.
Oh. Okay.
But the first, let's see. No.
No, you're way on. You're onto something here. So let's parse this out a little bit and tell me more.
Okay. Well, here's what I think happened. Okay. Let's see. I gotta remember what.
Almost heaven.
Oh. No, not. They had to kill that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's. Let's see.
Hey,
Yeah, that's what I think it was. Yeah.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Play your G chord again, though. Something seems weird on the G. Let me hear it again.
Okay. Well, the G sounded wrong when I included the high G,
Okay, got it. So you're trying different things up there.
but it sounded okay when I put in the high D, which is redundant, I know, but
Okay.
kill the high E.
Okay. So what's going on here is, well, let's see. There's a whole bunch of little things that are really cool. One is, this is not the key he's in either. Doesn't matter, because the progression, if you can think about these by numbers, once we figure out what key it's really in, transposing it is not going to be an issue. you know, but we've got we got another couple bridges to cross with this song as far as that goes.
Yep.
So you got the progression right, where it starts on chord 1
Then it goes to
for
6.
2 measures, goes to 6 for 2 measures, goes to 5 for 2 measures, and then 4 for only 1, and then back, right? And that 8 measures is exactly repeated for the second half of the verse. So a verse is 2 sets of those, what you just did.
Yep.
Then we get into the country roads, and do you have the progression to that down? You think it's a little different, right?
I can find that. No. Okay. No.
Right. Good.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's no A minor in the second half of the chorus.
Yeah.
It just goes straight from the G to the F and then back home.
E to the F. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Did you figure out the third part? There's a bridge to it too.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta.
Starts on not on C.
Right. Yeah. It starts on.
Good.
No. Oh, that's right. Oh. Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty close in that part. We'll get back to that in a minute. Yeah, because there are a couple of serious curveballs in that you couldn't really get without listening to it real carefully. Like, you know, to being dialed into what. And so we're gonna have to get that in the right key first, and then that'll be part of this week's assignment is to revisit this one. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll give you a couple of hints about the other part. But first we got to figure out what key it's in, and then now so the biggest story here is the melody notes.
Yeah.
Let me think about this. Sing the first line. Sing the first note in "Teach Your Children." When you play a C chord again in the key you played it in, and what is the first melody note that you hear that you would sing if you're singing that song for you?
You.
Okay, find that note.
It's right there.
Okay, yeah. So what
Yeah.
part of the chord is that?
Well, that is an E, and so that's a third.
Right. Okay. So, really the melody note, the first melody note to any song, can be any note in the chord. It doesn't have to be the root. It doesn't have to be the third, and it really doesn't even have to be the fifth. It's harder though if it's not one of those 3 notes to find the pitch, because those 3 notes are at least in the chord. So if you're thinking about Teach Your Children, you strum this and you hear you, then you start looking for the notes. You who were on the road. Now it's like 1 note higher. That's an F, which turns out to be the root of the chord of where we're going.
Oh, okay.
Right, we're going to an F chord there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, now, so I think a connection you made there back to Country Roads.
Yeah.
Almost. That's not E.
Right.
In other words, this doesn't start on the same note that Teach Your Children does, even though you're starting on the same chord.
Right.
So this seems to be starting on what note?
Seems to me to be starting on G.
It is, but see, that's another note in this chord. So it's just starting on the 5th of the chord.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean it's in the key of G. It doesn't even mean we're on a G chord. It's just that the song starts, the note you sing first is the 5th of whatever key you're in. and whatever chord you're on.
Okay.
Okay? Now, with both of these songs, the reason they fit well for you in the key of C is because your vocal range can find these songs in that key. And, you know, it wouldn't have been hard. Now, so back to Teach Your Children. I'm playing a D chord now, and now it might be a little harder for you to find that melody note because this would be now F sharp instead of the E that it was on the C chord. But it's right there. It's on the high string. Now, that's not the F sharp you're going to sing. You're going to sing it an octave lower than that. Right, right. But it might be a little harder to find that note, but the fact that it's on the top makes it pretty easy. You know, because you and I can't sing that high F sharp anyway, you know. But we can hit da 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 da. Anyway. Okay. So back to Country Roads now. So you got the chord progression exactly right, and you did figure out that it starts on the 5th of the chord. Yeah. And that introduced a little bit of an element of confusion, but this is just normal. You know, you can start the melody on any note in the chord. Okay. And something else we always want to consider when we're looking. This is getting a little bit beyond what we're talking about here of just figuring out chord progressions, but when you want to figure out what key is the best key for any song for you to sing it in, what you need to do is take in the range of notes that it uses. And a song like, well, let me go a little further into Country Roads. Okay, so playing through all of that, it never had a note lower than that G. Right. So the range was from G up, at the end it got up to a high F. So it had almost an octave's range. Rose. No. It gets all the way up to A. I forgot, in the chorus, I belong. So this is not going to be a good key for you to try to sing it in because the note that it starts on is actually the lowest note in the whole song. But it's going to get more than an octave higher than that in the chorus. It's going to get up to an A. Okay. So the range in this case is from the 5th of the key up to the 6th of the key.
Okay, all the way around, yeah.
Right. And so you'd almost want to have this in a key where that low 5th is like lower in your range of notes. Right. Like you might want it to be a D. Almost heaven, West Virginia. Now when you get to Country Roads, take me home to the place I belong. That gets all the way up to E that, you know, you or I might be able to hit if we're warmed up and stuff, you know. Anyway, so but many other songs, like if we start looking back at Teach Your Children, it might be that its range is from the root to the root. Yeah. So that would mean that like a key that had a different range of the 5th to the 5th in a different song would not be the best. Those two songs have to be in different keys for those ranges to be in your vocal range.
Okay, I understand.
Kind of get the math there. Yeah. Anyway, so now let's do the same thing with Country Roads that we just did with Teach Your Children, and see if you can figure out. I'm just going to stop it. We hear kind of an introduction that doesn't, as I recall, doesn't even change chords. So we hear like a few measures of the chord, and then probably it's going to just start singing right on that chord. So my guess is that the intro is just chord 1. We don't have anything else going on. Let's listen. Actually, let me stop it right there. That bass note was a dead giveaway. Did you hear the guitar play a bass note right on the very first beat?
No.
Let me take it back again. I'm going to stop it like right after the very first note we hear.
Well, that's what it was.
That might be it. Let me think. Let me. Bomb. So it wasn't that. It wasn't an F. Bomb.
Hey.
It's an A. Yeah. Um, and so something that jumped out at me right when I heard that is that sounds just like that sounded like an open string too. I mean, it's got this richness. I don't know if that's coming through on here, but it's like these are the other types of clues you look for in songs. Is like, oh well, and yeah. So yeah, let's listen a little bit further and let's see if we can if we hear any more bass notes like before anything else comes in, because something we might hear on that A chord is bomb 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 bomb. We might hear that pattern going from 1 5 1 that I was just talking about.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm gonna take it back to the beginning and let it play more than 2 beats this time, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, this song's in the key of A.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and those 2 bass notes gave away the A chord. Like there's no other chord that could have that would have been that pitch that had that, you know. So hearing that alternate down to the 5th,
Yeah.
helped us pin down, you know, some of the possibilities, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so that's it for this song today. Because now you have what key it's in. You've got the progression down for the 2 main parts.
Okay.
The bridge, when it comes to the bridge, I hear her voice in the morning hour. Okay,
Yeah.
so the first thing you're going to have to do is sketch out the chords in the key of A.
Yeah.
And as you remember, the parts you've played so far only use the same 4 chords that we had in Teach Your Children. The 3 majors and chord 6. Right? So we're going to hear that all in there. Now, the hint about the bridge is the chords change more often than you thought by you were trying to stay with close to the 2 measures per chord thing.
Yep.
Like the other sections had mostly. And the bridge, there are spots in the bridge where it changes 1 measure at a time. So there are quicker changes in there. And sometimes you would assume there's not a change because you're singing a note and you may sing the same note again, but many times the chord changes even though the note didn't change.
Yeah.
Because the note was in both chords.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So that's it for the hints on Country Roads. So it's in A, and oh no, you need one more big hint. There is a chord in the bridge, not in the key. Okay? And I don't know if that's the only chord. I can't remember right off the top of my head whether that's the only chord other than those 4. It probably is. So I have a feeling that the whole thing is the 4 that you had, plus 1 that is not in the key.
Okay.
Okay? All right, tell me about Nights in White Satin.
Okay. Not okay. So let's. All right. We'll switch gears here. Okay. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So starts on E,
Okay.
and so E and goes back to C.
Okay.
to D, stays in that same pattern.
Right.
Then A, G to F.
That F is an important note because the next thing we have, or next thing we have to do here is figure out what key this is in.
Right.
Okay, so you've got. What can you tell me about? Well, why would I say that F is an important note? It's right, by the way. In other words, you have this pretty much in the right spot.
Because it seems like, well, because it's the F is just a half a step above where we started,
Okay.
and so that means it's either 3 to 4 or 7 to 8.
Great. Okay. So right now that F, and that's why that note was important. That showed us where one of the half steps was.
Okay.
That means this narrowed it down to 2 keys. Like if I start saying what key could this be in, right now there are only 2 keys that this could be in because you know you have an E and an F in here.
Right.
So those have to either be 3 and 4 or 7 and 8.
Right.
So what are those 2 keys that we've narrowed it down to?
So let's see. Flummoxed here.
That means F has to be one of 2 possible notes in the scale.
Right.
What are those choices?
Has to be, okay. F has to be either 4 or 7.
Not quite.
Or 1.
Right. Okay. So we're either in the key of F or the key that has F as 4.
As 4.
Which would be what?
Which would be C.
Yeah. Okay. So right now we're either in the key of F or the key of C.
Okay.
And the only other different what you know that the key of C has no sharps and flats in it.
Right.
And we haven't scoped out all the notes you've played, but you haven't played any sharps or flats yet. Well, frankly, if we have F natural in this, we can't be in a key that has any sharps at all, because the first key that has sharps is G that has F sharp in it.
Right.
Right. So F is the first sharp in the sharp world.
Okay. Okay.
So we're not in a key. We're not in one of our. If we're not in the key of C, we're not in one of our other guitar-friendly keys because those all have sharps in them.
Right.
But we could be in the key of F, that is in the flat world. The key of F has 1 flat in it.
Okay.
And the F scale would go F, a whole step to G, whole step to A, then a half step to B flat.
Okay.
So as you played through this further, do you remember either playing a B or a B flat?
So a B. No.
Right. So we haven't hit a B or anyway. Next question. Does this song seem like it's in a major key or a minor key?
Seems like it's on a minor key.
Okay. So what would our choices be for chords if we're in the key of if we're using notes from a C scale?
Right.
What minor key are we looking at?
A.
Right. So play an A minor chord and see if that sounds like where you would start your melody.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the way you figured this out, it's in the key of A minor.
Yeah.
And consistently, this is not the key they're in either. Okay. But that doesn't matter because we're really trying to deal with this whole relative ear training of how to put stuff together.
Right.
You could see that when we listened to the other two songs, it wasn't difficult to actually figure out what pitch they were at by listening to something else, not worrying about the progression, just trying to pin down one thing, right? Okay, so now, and this chord progression is more complicated. It uses more than 4 chords,
Okay.
and it uses a chord not in the key. But it doesn't use more than like 6 or 7. So it might be like I'll have to run through it in my head again in just a second. But what I think we want to do with this is get you in the right key, and then figure out the melody the way in the right key, and then figure out what those chords are going to be from listening more to them and trying to pay attention to where the changes happen. Like you said, in Teach Your Children, it's real easy to hear, even if you're not listening to them, when they change, But so the melody note, you found the melody note, the note you started on was E.
Yeah.
And then we just determined that it's really A minor is the chord that's happening right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And which is what part of the chord?
It's the 4th.
There are no fourths in chords.
E. I'm sorry. What part of the chord is the E?
Yeah, because we're talking about an A minor chord, right? You got that, so you got it reversed, I think.
Oh, you mean it's the 5th in the A minor chord?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So similar to Country Roads, the first melody note is the 5th of whatever chord and whatever key we're in.
Okay.
But to sort of cut to the quick now, they're in the key of E minor, not A minor.
Okay.
So strum an E minor chord. And now what's the 5th of E minor?
Well, it's this B right here.
Right. Yeah. And so as far as picking out the melody goes, what you'd want to do is not play that in the bass. You'd want to play it an octave higher. So where's the next B?
Okay. So the next B is the B string.
Yeah. Okay. So use that as your starting point for the melody now. And it'll come out something like this. And this range did get all the way down to the tonic E and up to the E. So the range of notes in this case is 1 to 1. And it started on the 5th, eventually it worked its way all the way down, it got all the way up to 1 to the E and down to the E. Yeah, okay. So the whole range of this is 1 octave.
Okay.
And it's in the key of E minor, which is relative to what major key?
Let's see. Can I determine that by, how do I work off of that?
Well, what do you know about the last key we talked about we talked about both the minor key and the major key that share the same key signature?
Right, C and A.
Okay. And which of those was minor?
A.
Okay, so now we have E minor, and we're looking for its major. Yeah.
G.
So that's the set of chords you're going to be looking at for Nights in White Satin. Is chords from the key of G, but it's using chord 6, E minor, really as chord 1, as home.
Right.
So the list of chords for this song in the key of E minor is the same as the list of chords would be in the key of G major.
Right.
But E minor is home.
Is the 1.
Yeah. So you don't have to even worry about renumbering them. It's more just make a list of those, the 6 or even the 7. We still are not going to care about the diminished chord.
Right.
to be chord 7 in the key of G.
Right.
But we're going to see those 6 other major and minor chords are likely candidates.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
But they're the same. So if E minor is the 1, whereas in a G scale, E minor, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just trying to think about,
I think you're on the right track.
okay. So list them across, and then it's just the progression numbers change with E minor as 1.
Right. So in a major key, you know that we have 1, 4, and 5 are major chords.
Right.
7 is the diminished chord,
Right.
and the other ones are the minors. That's the way I like to have people think about this, rather than memorizing 1, 4, and 5, 2, 3, and 6, and 7 is like the odd man out.
Right.
Because once you figure out the numbers in the minor key and try to think about them the same way, you'll see the connection there.
Okay.
The diminished chord that is 7 in the major key would be what number in the minor key?
Um, well, let's see. We're backing up 2, so it'd be 5th.
No, because what's the new 1? Our new 1 chord is what used to be what? In the major key, it was number what?
6.
So the old 7, if 6 became 1,
7 became 2.
right. In the minor key, that's where the diminished chord falls, and that's the chord we generally don't worry about. So the
Okay.
chords get renumbered. Basically, you turn the circle 2 notches of the
Okay.
7 chords that are on it.
Okay.
Okay? So, but the same 7 chords just get renumbered.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. And we have one that's out of the key.
That's like a separate issue particular to this song. It's going to use a chord. And okay, the other big hint I'll give you about that then, it uses a chord from the key of C that is not in the key of G.
Okay.
Okay, there are okay, but yeah, that okay. That may not still become an issue yet. You got enough to work on right now. Okay, so um, but you know what? Feel free to text me or something if you get a little stuck somewhere, or if you think you got God. I think I have most of this, but I'm you know, yeah, running out of ideas here. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
because and then really feel free to try this with lots of other songs. You know, I would always listen to them to get the song fresher in your head, and really to try to figure out the key they're in.
Okay.
You know, but there's nothing wrong with doing what you did here, which was just like winging it and seeing what you can come up with. But then, because a lot of these songs also have like a James Taylor song or some other things have very distinctive things that happen on the guitar that can help you figure out what they were doing. Like that bass thing that we just heard at the beginning of Country Roads. You know, those 2 bass notes, kind of set us in the right key.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do the same thing with, if people are asking me, hey, can you show me the chords to this? I may have no idea what key it's in. Although at this point I've done thousands of songs, so there's a good chance I know what key it's in. But still,
Right.
But I'll do the same thing. I'll just start picking it out and seeing, okay, well here's how it might go, but let's figure out what key they really did it in, especially if it's a guitar player, because there's probably things in there that he or she did on the guitar that if we don't play it in the right key, we're not going to get the little nuances or subtleties or embellishments and things like that.
Right.
So.
Well, I got lots to do here.
Yeah. Sorry to go on so long-winded about all this, but
Oh, no. This is enough. This is great.
yeah, no, I think this is all really important stuff. So
No, I love this. Okay, great. Fantastic.
okay, are you going to be back around next week, or what's your game plan now?